Texas House Democratic Caucus Chair and State Representative Chris Turner of Grand Prairie. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. So last night, House Democrats walked out of the House chamber, effectively stopping all debate on Senate Bill 7. Why did you decide to do that? And can you confirm a text message that I saw in the Texas Tribune that you told members to walk out?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Jack. You know, Democrats have been fighting this vote suppression legislation all session long. And we came to the House floor yesterday determined to do all we could to stop it from passing because it is harmful to our constituents. It will hurt their ability to be able to vote in future elections. And so we had several different ways we were going to approach that. We're going to try to kill the bill on a procedural maneuver called a point of order. We had several of those ready to go. We also were prepared for several dozen Democratic members to speak against the bill. And each member is allowed under the rules to speak up to 10 minutes. That would have pushed us well past the midnight deadline to pass bills. And we were determined to do all we could to kill the bill that way. However, as the evening got later and we got closer to the midnight deadline, it became increasingly clear that Republicans were going to do their own procedural maneuver to shut down debate and ram the legislation through before the midnight deadline. And so at that point, when we realized that was imminent, we decided to ask members to leave, to deny the body the quorum necessary to conduct business. Yes, I can confirm the text message I sent.
And so you felt you had no other choice?
That's right.
And so did House Republicans have any idea that you may do this? Because wasn't there didn't you have a meeting with Speaker Phelan beforehand?
We did meet with the Speaker earlier in the day, late afternoon, and you know, we discussed broadly our deep reservations about the legislation, and you know, gave the Speaker the opportunity to address our caucus. I'll just leave it at that. We appreciate the fact the Speaker came to our caucus, and we want to keep those conversations internal and confidential.
And so in the Democrats' opinion, what were the most egregious provisions in the bill? Because this was a conference committee bill, different from what the Senate and House initially passed.
Well, that's right, Jack. And you know, how much time do you have? Because there's a lot of offensive provisions in the bill. But let me give you the top two or three. One, enhanced powers for partisan poll watchers, who under this bill would basically have free reign to roam through polling places and harass and intimidate voters and election officials. And this is a well-worn tactic by Republican campaigns to do this in predominantly minority precincts. This would have increased poll watchers' authority, and that's hugely problematic. One of the most offensive provisions, I think, was the provision to say that early voting on a Sunday cannot begin before 1 p.m. And we know in North Texas and in Tarrant County, where I live, and in Dallas County and other counties, early voting typically begins in the late morning. In Tarrant County, it's 11 o'clock on Sundays. And the reason that's important is in that many churches, particularly in the African American community, there's a great tradition called Souls to the Polls. People come to church, they worship. After the church service is over, people go to the polls as a congregation, cast their vote. Starting at 1 o'clock really cuts off the ability to do that when church is getting out at 9 in the morning or 10 in the morning or 11 in the morning. And further, it queues up a line at the polling place when it does finally open at 1 o'clock. That's clearly a suppressive move. There is no reason to change the law to say that voting can't begin until 1 on Sunday. As Senator Royce West said, so the legislature passed a bill saying you can buy beer at 10 a.m. on Sunday, but you can't vote until 1 p.m. on Sunday. That makes no sense.
And as far as, that was a new provision that was not, according to Representative Beckley, that had never been vetted or discussed even in the House committee.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And so let me ask you, as far as the special session, what can the Democrats do? What will you try to do to try to stop this from happening? Because you won't have a time constraint um, that you did, obviously, at the end of the legislative session.
Well, we'll have to play it by ear. We'll have to see, when the governor calls a special session, what items he puts on the agenda. He obviously has complete control of that, and we know that. We're going to continue to fight this bill and other bills like it um, as long as it takes, and we'll just have to see. I can't. 24 hours ago, I could not have predicted to you how yesterday would have gone. And so I certainly can't predict how a special session may go. So we'll just have to see what happens. But Democrats are going to continue to fight efforts to suppress the vote.
And what was the mood among Democrats last night that you basically killed the bill?
Well, we were determined. We knew we were on the right side of this issue and defending our constituents' rights to vote. And we were determined to do what it takes.
My last question to you is, this was not obviously the first piece of legislation that the Democrats helped kill in the House. And so I know there's been a lot of back and forth between Republicans in the Senate and the House. What's going on here?
Well, you're exactly right. The Democrats have been successful in killing a number of bad measures in the House over the last few weeks, and I'm very proud of our caucus who has fought so hard to stop some of these measures. Look, I think that the Senate is controlled by the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and if he wants to pass something, it passes. I think the House is a little more member driven, where clearly Republicans have a majority, and the bills that have passed out of the House reflect a Republican majority intent on passing very, in some cases, extreme legislation. But Democrats still have a voice, and we're able to use the rules, and we're able to use our influence to affect policy outcomes. And I think that's the difference you've seen. So I'm very proud of how our caucus has fought throughout the session. And I think we've gotten some key wins here in the final days.
All right, Chris Turner, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.